it does get to a point where when you're really harnessing and you're moving that energy and you're directing it towards your vision, it's almost like once it really starts going, you can almost just like kick back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Like it's just doing everything for you because you've learned to transmute it and direct it towards those goals and that vision. What's up, guys? Welcome to Lion's Heart. And in this video, I wanted to speak about the potency and really the influence of sexual energy in our lives. And as I was filming and really preparing for this video and, contemplating the subject, I really kind of came into a block, like a struggle. And really what that struggle was about was like, how do I convey just the sheer amount of influence and power and effect that the sexual energy has in our lives. Like it really was like, the more and more I thought about it, the less and less words that I could apply to this topic and this subject, because it's just such a huge influence in our lives. It's such a huge effector of, everything we do, from our self-image to our motivation, to our drives, to, why we pursue the things we do. The behavior of 95% of society and humanity revolves around sexual energy. And I think we kind of put it on the back burner. We kind of see it as, just this thing, it's casual. It's like this thing people do to recreate, and, it's either good or it's bad, and you can read books on it, and you can have casual sex and these things. And it's just so not that. We massively underestimate what sexual energy is because we think we're so evolved. We think we're so ahead of, the curve. We're so evolved and past our animal side and past, we figured this thing out. We're evolved past our, primate selves and our, animal ancestors. And it's like, no, we are still very much that, right? We're still very much deeply intertwined with that DNA and that primal energy and instincts and drives to survive and reproduce. Just because we have computers and planes and technology does not mean that we have out-evolved millions of years of evolution, right? So what I mean by that is that humans are still very much wired for survival and reproduction, very much still wired to reproduce, and that revolves around sexuality, right? So sexuality is much more influential and deeply intertwined with our lives than we give it credit for. And just to further emphasize and give examples of how influential sexual energy is in humanity, we can look at humans of past, right? And if we look at the history of humanity, we can see that within each and every religion and with each and every culture, pretty much across the globe, sexuality is an issue, right? It's something that becomes, repressed, shamed, and kind of put in the corner, right? It doesn't matter if it's Christianity, if it's Judaism, if it's Buddhism, if it's Hinduism, if it's Islam. It doesn't matter the religion. It doesn't matter the culture. For most of human civilization, sexuality has been something that has been very, what's the right word here? Very difficult to deal with, and very, people don't really know how to handle it, right? So what do they kind of come to is usually some kind of suppression, right? It's like women have to wear durkas, they have to cover their bodies, or they can't show their ankles, or they have to, stay inside a certain room, or they can't leave the house without a male companion or something like that, because sexuality is just so feared, and it's such a strong, potent desire that I guess the men of these, cultures and religions, because they had most of the power, unfortunately, but the men of these cultures and religions, they decide, okay, we don't know what to do with this intense, potent energy. So what we're going to do is we're just going to tell women to cover up, and we don't want it. We don't even want it around us. We don't want to even look at it. We don't want to see it, because they couldn't handle the intensity of that energy, right? And what's funny is that as much as these religions fight and these countries fight and these cultures fight, this is the one thing that they seem to agree upon, right? And so this tells us something about sexuality. This tells us something very valuable about sexuality, that as much as these different kinds of people can, disagree and fight and say you're wrong, you're evil, they all seem to agree that sex is a problem and that they don't really know what to do about it or how to handle it, right? And we can also see this in history. We can see how deeply, sexual confusion and sexual affairs and things like that have caused, wars. I mean, look at Helen of Troy. That was a affair, and the prince took her, and then it created a whole, huge war where thousands of people died, right? And, you can see Julius Caesar, how he was, intoxicated by Cleopatra's seduction and her seduction capabilities. And you have one of the greatest leaders in the world who, weakened his political stance because he was caught up in this, this sexual drama. And he was, his sexuality kind of like took over, and he lost clarity, and he lost, a lot of his personal empowerment from that. You can see like how many people throw their lives away because of some kind of sexual affair, whether it's a man or a woman. You can see like older men who, throw away their marriage, they throw away their fortune and their lives because they get, intoxicated and seduced by some kind of younger woman, some kind of younger energy, or women who do the same thing, who throw away or lose all of their, all the relationships and the things they've worked towards, and, the relationships they've worked to build because of some kind of fleeting, desire or, excitement or escapade, right? And these are lives that are ruined, right? And it's just because of this potency of the sexual energy and how it can like just take over and, really derail. And, I think the point here is not that it's destructive, but it's just showing how powerful and hypnotic the sexual energy is, that it can take us out of complete rationality. It can take us out of our state of wisdom. It can just completely overwhelm us, right? So what I'm getting at here is like, let's just acknowledge the potency of this energy. Let's just see the sexual energy as this incredibly powerful force that has immense influence over us. And we can then build from there to see how we can, work with this energy and use it rather than being afraid of it, needing to put it in the corner, or letting it become a destructive energy. Really, what I'm trying to convey and explain here is that our sexual energy is so much stronger than we give it credit for, and it's so much more influential than we give it credit for. And that really humans are designed for two things, which is survival and reproduction, right? And that this sexual energy is the energy behind life itself. It is the energy behind the movement of life itself. It is the reason that humans, get up and go to work. It is the reason that people feed themselves. It is the reason that people have friends and have social circles and things like that. All of this ties back to sexuality. It's also the reasons that, whales sing to each other, and apes climb social hierarchies, and birds do crazy mating call dancing, performances to find a mate. None of this is random. This is all very intelligent, and this is all revolving around that mating sexual energy. So we have to acknowledge that, so much of our life and choices and decisions really revolve around this energy, and that, in a certain way, the religions were smarter because, and I rarely say that, but the religions were actually smarter because, not because they covered up women or because they had strict rules around celibacy and they didn't allow anyone to, move up the spiritual hierarchy unless they were celibate, but they were wiser in the sense that they actually understood the potency of the sexual desire and the sexual energy. They did not underestimate it. And that's the problem today, is that we underestimate it. And, at least they acknowledged how powerful it was, and that they couldn't really have control and mastery over it. They knew that about themselves, which is why they made women cover up, and they had all these strict rules. And, what I'm here to say is that it doesn't matter how much you cover up. It doesn't matter how much you meditate. It doesn't matter, how much you read books on the subject. Like you're not going to ever be able to really control and, really have like that suppression over your sexual energy. The best we can do is learn to work with it and master it and harness it. But I don't think that it's such a strong force that I don't think we're ever going to really truly be able to have like that full control over it. But we can work with it. It's like a river. We have to flow with it. We have to direct it. We have to see it as an engine, right? The sexual energy is like an engine, and it can propel us towards, the life we want to create and things we want to do, or it can get in the way and we can demonize it and we can like put blocks in front of it. And what is that going to do? It's like trying to block a river from flowing. Like the pressure is going to build up and it's just going to spill out in weird and inefficient and scattered ways, right? So what we want to do is we want to master and hone the movement of that energy. We want to move it towards our vision, move it towards our purpose, and become at peace with it and work with it and actually see it as a gift, as something that can help us to move forward in life and to create what we want to create and be more like an engine instead of something that's a block or getting in our way. And so we can begin to use our sexual energy almost as like a heat-seeking missile. You can actually harness, transmute, master, and direct your sexual energy to accomplish and kind of bring yourself to a vision and a goal in life where you want to be, right? Because with that sexual energy, if you don't spill it out and you're not, honestly watching porn, having a bunch of random meaningless sex, and just as a side note, how you harness and transmute your sexual energy is different for everybody. I'm going to make a video on this in the future, different ways to transmute sexual energy, because it's a whole nother thing. Some people, it works in a monogamous tantric relationship. Some people, it's polyamory. Some people, it's celibacy. But, spilling out your energy to things like, online adult content and things like that, it's just going to scatter your sexual energy. You have to really learn to master and not give into it so easily, right? And adult content, really what it's done is it's hijacked this sacred energy. It's hijacked your biological desires and needs, and it's overstimulated it, and it's really turned it against you. And in a way, you've been robbed. So you can even get angry. I get angry about that. It's like I've been robbed of this sacred, powerful force. The most powerful force that drives biological life has been robbed from this industry, right? So get angry about it, right? Take control back. Take your fire back. Take your power back. And we can begin to see this energy as a heat-seeking missile. And if we master it and harness it and we're not spilling it out, then it just begins to build up, right? And we can put all that energy towards something. Put that towards the gym. Put that towards your work. Put that towards reading. Put that towards finding an actual satisfying relationship, building a satisfying relationship, healing your trauma, awakening spiritually. Like there's so much that you can do with that energy, and it's such a powerful engine, right? And so what we want to do is we want to just harness that engine and use it for us rather than against us and harming us and working against us. And, if we look at evolution, again, we look at evolution. Why do apes have these, complex social hierarchies that they're trying to climb? And the best thing that one ape can do is get to the top. All their resources are going towards that climbing of the hierarchy, right? It's because that gives you the most sexual optionality. So that's the highest thing that an ape can do. So all of his energy is going towards that. It's going towards creating those social bonds, getting that food, hunting properly so that they can become at the top of the hierarchy. Why do, again, like these birds do these crazy, very difficult, very energy demanding rituals, mating rituals? It's because that's the best thing that they can do is to be the top pick in the social standing in the tribe for their mates, right? So what if we took that same energy and we kind of harnessed it and put it towards our lives? And that energy is a growing energy. It's a motivating energy, and it will give you the energy, motivation, and drive and creativity and intellectual insight to create and build what you want to create, because it's that same energy that is causing that ape to go up the hierarchy. It's the same energy that's causing that bird to build that crazy elaborate structure. So this is no joke, and we're not any different. Like, do you really think you're different from that bird or that ape? No, we're still the same thing with the same desires and the same goals and obstacles. So what we're doing is we're co-opting and we're kind of hacking this natural, powerful energy within us, within nature, and we're using it consciously to build and create what we want to in life. And the last thing I'm going to say here, guys, is don't be a sucker. Don't feed into the narrative that modern society teaches us about sex and sexual desire. If we look at current, shows and movies, we have things like The Wedding Crashers, Sex and the City, these kinds of shows where, sex is seen as this kind of casual, fun, flingy, spicy thing. And it's really about expression and indulgence and, enjoyment of it. And it's all about pleasure. And there's nothing wrong with pleasure. There's nothing wrong. I'm not saying you have to be some like celibate Christian who, never enjoys sex or anything. Sex is very enjoyable, but it's the whole, what it is? It's the whole framing and perspective and mentality around it that I have a problem with. And they don't have this sacred, devotion to it or an acknowledgement of its power. They're just kind of unconsciously being driven by it. And I'm not just talking about the shows. I'm talking about society at large. And we live in a society where it's like it's all about indulging and expressing and pleasure and enjoyment. And we don't acknowledge that that's only one part of sexuality. The reason it feels enjoyable and pleasurable is because it's a huge biological drive for us to reproduce, right? So when we just take out that whole part and we just focus on the pleasure, we're really only respecting half of what the sexual energy is, right? And so what I really want to say is like try to unbrainwash all of that programming around sex just being this casual thing, this fun thing, this thing that we just do for pleasure. Really try to come back to the roots of it. Why is it there? Why do we have that deep sexual desire and things like that? It's because we're designed to survive and reproduce. And the reason that a young woman looks attractive is because there's a survival mechanism behind that. The reason that a man who has status is attractive is because there is deep survival mechanisms behind that. None of this is random. We're not smarter than any of it. And so what I want to say is just have more reverence for that energy, understand it more, become more connected to your sexual energy, and begin to use it to, create the life you want to create. It's a creative force. It creates life, right? So we can actually direct that potency into the life that we want to create. And, it does get to a point. I'll say for myself, I'm not perfect at all, but I will say that it does get to a point where when you're really harnessing and you're moving that energy and you're directing it towards your vision, it's almost like once it really starts going, you can almost just like kick back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Like it's just doing everything for you because you've learned to transmute it and direct it towards those goals and that vision. And, discipline becomes easy. Your habits become easy and you just kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, right? So that's what I want for you guys. And, really stop disrespecting your sexual energy and really begin to have that reverence and wisdom around, its power. And just kind of laying that out and kind of giving that perspective for now. And obviously we'll dive into this more in future videos. Hope that was super helpful. Lots of love, guys. Talk soon. Cheers.